Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Young Professionals and Professional Memberships. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please submit these using the Q&A function, and we will have time to answer these towards the end of today's session. I'll now pass over to Helen Mackay, Chairperson of the District Centre, who will provide a short introduction for tonight's event. Over to you, Helen.
Thanks, Heather, and welcome to this evening's event, which is in conjunction with SFE YP. For bankers that have joined us, that stands for Scottish Financial Enterprises Young Professionals Network, which is quite a mouthful. We're delighted to have Millie Batchelor join us this evening for a fireside chat with our Vice Chair of the District Centre, who is Rory McIntyre. Both of them work for NatWest Group. Both of them are involved in the SFE YP, and they were also both semi-finalists in the Young Banker of the Year competition. However, I expect they will have different experiences to share with us this evening, and there will be an opportunity to ask questions, as Heather mentioned earlier. And one final thing that is slightly different, congratulations to Millie, who has just been named as one of the top 35 young people under 35. So over to you, Rory.
Thanks for that, Helen. And good evening, everyone. So I think, Millie, I think we said we'd start with a couple of introductions, didn't we, this evening? So if you want to go first and give a brief intro to yourself, and I'll go next.
Absolutely. Thanks very much. And thank you, Helen and Heather, for having me as well today. So my name is Millie Batchelor. Day to day, I work in the youth banking team at NatWest Group, which is a team specifically designed to look at our products, propositions, customer journeys for the youth segment and make them really engaging and relevant. I'm actually on secondment from the web platform team in Digitech, so it's a temporary role in another team within the bank. I'm also the chair of SFE YP, which you can say instead of Scottish Financial Enterprise Young Professionals, a bit less of a mouthful. I've done that for just over a year, but prior to that, I was the deputy chair for Edinburgh, and I've also been a member ever since I was introduced to SFE YP at the 2018 Young Banker of the Year competition. I'm really passionate about the potential of unlocking the next generation, using technology and amplifying the positive role of financial services in society, all of which we have a focus on at SFE YP. I'm also a member of the Chartered Bankers Institute and keep up with my professional qualifications through that membership. Over to you, Rory.
Thanks, Millie. So yeah, I'm Rory McIntyre. I'm a business manager at NatWest Group, where I assist our senior leaders to manage their workforce effectively and efficiently via various business management activities. Our current responsibilities focus on the development of business management software that helps us manage governance around hiring and headcount forecasting. But away from the day job, I've been an active member of the Chartered Banker Institute since 2017, and I've served with Helen on the Edinburgh, Lothians and Fife District Centres Committee for the last 2 years, the last year of which being in the position of Vice-Chairperson. I've also been a member of Scottish Financial Enterprise Young Professionals for just over a year, and I've been a firm representative working alongside Millie as a firm rep for NatWest Group since the summer of 2021. So really pleased to be here this evening, hoping that the attendees will get an awful lot out of the event, and Millie and I have certainly got an awful lot of experience in our roles in both organisations to talk you through. So Millie, just moving on from our introductions, I think we've got a lot of people who will be along to the event tonight who are either a member of the Chartered Banker Institute or either a member of SFE YP. But there's probably going to be a lot of people who are either only a member of one or actually a member of neither. I think we should maybe just give a quick introduction as to what those organisations are. So do you mind starting us off by talking a little bit about SFE YP?
Of course, absolutely. So SFE YP is a network that was established in 2016 by young people from firms across SFE's wider membership to help support young people across the sector, provide opportunities and act as a catalyst for career development, support networking, and act as a focal point to champion issues that are important to young professionals. Over the past 2 years, we've really sought to rise to the challenge of connecting members and providing meaningful opportunities in ways that are useful to our members, especially during a sudden change to a virtual world. We now have over 800 members, and we're underpinned by a committee with both a Glasgow and an Edinburgh strand who focus on strategy, and also amazing firm reps like yourself, Rory, who focus on embedding the opportunities from SFE YP further into the SFE member firms to really reach as many young professionals as possible. Our strategy for 2022, on top of continuing to deliver accessible virtual events for members and also provide volunteering opportunities such as the opportunities to speak at the Unified Schools programme, include a focus on skills and inclusion with mental health, changing customer needs and climate as well. And we've split our committee up this year aligned to these work streams in order to deliver on those. Would you like to do the same for CBI, Rory?
Yeah, thanks for that, Millie. So yeah, the Chartered Banking Institute is a professional educational body for bankers. It covers professional accreditation through qualifications, improving industry standards, advocating ethical practices and what we do as businesses, providing network opportunities for members and a whole host of other opportunities on top of that as well. I really am selling it short, to be honest there. I think just now we sit at just over 30,000 members globally, which is fantastic. And as the oldest institution in the world for banking, the Institute was actually founded way back in 1875 and is currently making plans to celebrate its 150th anniversary in 2025, which has actually been coupled with its 2025 foundation, which will provide financial support for young professionals who are entering the banking industry, which is obviously really similar to what we hear discussing this evening. So it's really good being involved in an institution with such history and a wealth of experience in supporting professionals. And it's been really good actually as well, moving on from my role with the Institute to now also working with SFE YP at the same time.
Sounds fantastic, Rory. And I don't think you sold it short at all there. One thing that I always love to hear about, and I always ask speakers, is more about their personal experiences of things like this. So I'd love to hear what you feel you've got personally out of being part of CBI and SFE YP.
Yeah, so I think that's the really key part in why we're here, isn't it? And I imagine our experiences have probably been quite similar, Millie, and I'm really hopeful that the attendees this evening are able to get an awful lot of what our experiences are and hopefully take a little bit away to try and drive their own careers, hence the name of the event this evening. So if I go back a couple of years, as a young professional first entering the banking industry just over 5 years at the age of 24, I was quite conscious that to advance your career, you have to go beyond the call of duty, as they say, and get yourself noticed. Little did I know that the Chartered Banking Institute was going to be the mechanism that allowed me to do that. And following on from completing a formal qualification with the Institute in 2017, I started attending development and networking events the following year. And that just helped to greatly advance my knowledge of the wider industry and what different organisations get up to. So this in turn obviously helped me in my day job, but the industry-wide knowledge was vital for me to progress into new roles, including getting promoted a couple of times along the way, thankfully. And the knowledge and network that I've gained has just continued to expand exponentially as I've attended more events, became more involved in a local district centre, which has also now led to me joining the Institute's membership forum recently. But as well as that external network and that external industry network expanding, it's also led to me kind of raising my profile internally an awful lot, which has also greatly helped in terms of progressing my career. That was also helped by being an applicant for the Young Banker of the Year competition last year, which we mentioned earlier on. The experience from the Institute and the contacts I gained from that was also then vital in me getting involved in SFE YP, which is where Millie came in and approached me about getting involved last year. And I've been able to pivot really easily into working with another similar organisation through the experience I've had with the Institute. And then the work that I do with both organisations, which is obviously separate to my day job, I now have the opportunity to try and advocate that membership and assist others to get the same assistance that I had to progress my career, which is obviously why we're here this evening and having this event and trying to share this best practice. So Millie, I imagine your experiences are probably quite similar, but do you mind giving us a bit of an insight into what you've gotten from both organisations?
Absolutely. I totally agree with you, Rory. The education and knowledge I've gained through professional membership has been invaluable. I think for a person of any age, not just young professionals, joining any industry, it can be really daunting. So to have membership opportunities at your fingertips that help you educate yourself, but also help you to meet like-minded peers, mentors, and people that become friends is amazing. I think one of my biggest learnings quite early on in joining the memberships was just how broad the opportunities are in financial services and how many different job roles there are, and being part of these types of committees has really helped me to see that and learn a lot more about it. I've also been really lucky to attend some amazing events with some really inspiring speakers. I know you've got one coming up with Sheena Hales, which I'm really looking forward to. You touched upon kind of promotions and career progression, and I can proudly say that we've seen a few committee members from SFE YP attribute their career progression to opportunities that they've had on SFE YP. So, for example, by getting experience shaping a strategy or delivering a comm strategy that they weren't getting in their jobs at the time, but they were able to show that they could do that out with their day jobs. I guess for me specifically on SFE YP, things that I've really got out of it include having the opportunity to shape the SFE YP strategy. It's given me the opportunity to speak publicly at industry events, and it's empowered me to drive projects in areas that myself and our members feel passionate about. I think I've been generally amazed at finding out how big the role financial services can play in communities really is. I know we work in the same place, Rory, and we're lucky to work in a very purpose-led organisation that champions this anyway, but being part of these additional organisations has expanded my ability to make a difference. So with SFE YP last year, we were able to partner with mental health charities SAMH and SeeMe and do a really big project around mental health in the workplace. We also had a Green Finance Summit last year. I'm sure we'll come on to some of these things later on, but it's just been really brilliant to be able to be part of those the things that matter to colleagues and to people, on top of being able to work with some fantastic people and a really great committee as well.
Yeah, that is, and I think just to jump on the back of what you've said there, it's quite cyclical, isn't it? There's almost like a cycle that repeats itself. We've managed to get an awful lot out of this, and now that you get to the stage where you're giving back to the organisation and helping organise events and getting involved in strategies and things like mental wellbeing, as you mentioned there, it's just great to actually be able to get involved in those things for your own career progression and what you want to get out of it, but also just for the effect you can have on colleagues and other professionals across the wider industry is just fantastic. So, no, thanks for that, Millie. Yeah, really agree with a lot of the points you raised there. So I think we've both kind of covered quite a bit about what we've gotten out of it. To get a little bit more formal out of it, there's obviously an awful lot we can discuss about what each organisation does individually and the general benefits of being a member, but we're obviously here this evening to try and advocate membership first. So do you mind giving us a little bit of a talk through, Millie, in terms of what you can get out of being a member for SFE YP?
Absolutely, I'd love to. I guess one of the wonderful things about SFE YP or any membership or voluntary position is that you really do get out of it what you put in. So I'll talk through kind of different levels of participation and what you might get out of it at each stage. So the most active participation you can kind of have with SFE YP is becoming a committee member or a firm representative. That gives you the opportunity to engage with the strategy, create the strategy, shape the strategy, engage with the SFE board members and other senior leaders, organise and lead industry-wide events, input into the SFE work streams as well, and have a say in what the wider SFE industry strategy is. But in terms of general membership, for kind of more active members, we have opportunities for people to come along and be a guest blogger or a guest vlogger for us if they want to do those types of things. We advertise opportunities for the Unified Schools programme to go into schools and speak about financial services, you know, remove the stigma that financial services is big and scary and talk about how great careers can be in financial services and what's so great about us being in the sector. This year we created a peer mentorship scheme where we really want our members to share feedback, support each other, but also practice coaching skills and mentoring skills. And you can sign up to be both a mentor and a mentee for that one. There's also some, if people don't want to kind of put an active role in SFE YP, you can benefit from our other things that we do. So we have events. We've got our milestone face-to-face event. So we've got the December parliamentary event in Holyrood and the SFE Awards night as well. In October last year, we had a face-to-face Green Finance Summit in Glasgow, and we had the guest speaker, Kate Forbes, as well as leaders from organisations like Keep Scotland Beautiful. And we also deliver virtual events, which we do each month, either based on a specific topic of interest from that our members have told us about, or just something that we have decided that we think would be helpful for our members. In 2022, we have set up sessions with each of the SFE board members as well, who have volunteered to an hour of their time for us to talk through their careers and their top tips as well. I am nearly done, promise. Other resources that you can get when just kind of being a general member. We post blogs each month on topics that our members have told us that they care about. I love this about our committee members because this is young professionals talking about things that matter to young professionals, and it's really great to kind of get insights from young professionals, but also hear from other people that might feel the same way that you do about a topic. We had a brilliant one recently about paternity leave from one of our committee members, and it was quite eye-opening and interesting. But yeah, you can check it out on our LinkedIn, shameless plug to go and have a read. We also have a monthly skills focus. So this month we've got career confidence, so you can see video tips from committee members on the topics. And we point members to other fantastic opportunities as well. So say the Sheena Hills event that you've got coming up, Rory, we would point our members to that. There's a common purpose workshop in Glasgow coming up. And we also share content that we think is relevant to our members, such as Sam H and See Me, their charity resources that they've got. I'll pause for a breath, Rory, and maybe you can talk us through the chartered banker benefits as well.
No, that's great. Thanks, Millie. It's great hearing such a comprehensive list of benefits of SFE YP membership, and I can confirm that I've managed to get a lot of those benefits you've mentioned there. You mentioned Unified School Programme. I'm hopefully doing an event with them at some point soon. I was also lucky enough to attend the pre-COP Youth Summit that you mentioned there in Glasgow, which was a fantastic afternoon, or a fantastic full day, but the afternoon where we actually broke out and spoke with individuals from other organisations and got an idea of everyone's view towards trying to move towards a green economy and the role of the finance industry. And that it was a borderline inspiring day, actually, in terms of what we got out of it. And as you mentioned, the fact that we also got Kate Forbes along as a speaker in person that day was fantastic as well. So no, thanks for that, Millie. So if I'll just now turn us back to the Chartered Banker Institute and talk a little bit about the benefits that the Institute offers. So I touched on quite a lot of it earlier in terms of actually what the Institute does being an education body. The career development opportunities offered by Institute membership are massive, and that really begins with the various qualifications that are offered by the Institute that give you a great opportunity to expand your knowledge. And they range from certificates that take a couple of months to complete up to full degree level qualifications. And actually, there's kind of central qualifications that are covering the industry wide, but there's then also qualifications within there that will focus on set subjects such as green and sustainable, green and sustainable finance, climate risk, professional standards, and a couple of others as well. You know, it's the opportunities that the Institute offers through those formal qualifications is fantastic. Away from that, the various development events you can actually attend, such as this one this evening, you get invited along to for free as a member, give you a great opportunity to learn about different subjects that you might not be familiar with. We recently had an event in January that was an economic review of 2021, which was really interesting, just kind of talking about the effect of COVID on the economy, outlook to the future, and actually it was a follow-on from a similar event we had in 2020. So it was really interesting to keep that going, and actually after some conversations that Helen and I have had with our local district centre, we're hoping to maybe try and have that as a regular annual event, because the feedback we get from it's great and just the content is so interesting. The Central Institute team, they're running a webinar tomorrow, a little bit short notice to sign up, but if anyone's free, I would highly recommend. They've got an event about the impact of AI, something that I'm really interested in, having touching base with a lot of technology stuff in my day job. When we look at what artificial intelligence and machine learning can do for the wider industry, it's massive. So it's fantastic to see the Institute putting on events like that allow us to increase your knowledge about topics that you probably won't come into contact with in your regular day job. So I'm really pleased with that, and I see Heather's just posted a link to that event in the chat as well. So if anyone is interested, feel free to sign up on that. And Millie mentioned earlier on as well, 2 weeks tonight on International Women's Day, we've got an event coming up with Sheena Hales from NatWest Group, who was awarded a British Empire Medal following her work in the first COVID lockdown to turn NatWest Gogarburn Conference Centre into a food bank to assist the local community. Just a really inspiring story of how actually large financial organisations, so large and small actually for that matter, can really make a big difference in terms of benefiting their local community. So yeah, if anyone's free at the same time 2 weeks tonight on International Women's Day on the 8th of March, feel free to come along to that. And we also do have our Central Institutes event that's going on in the afternoon of that day as well for International Women's Day. So it's fantastic to have these various diverse topics of events that the Institute puts on for you, and as I said, you get access to all of them for free as a member. I can't recommend it enough. Some of the really diverse topics I've been able to attend and learn more about, it's been brilliant. for the day job, but also just that increased wider industry knowledge that I mentioned earlier on. And that also just compounds that great networking that I mentioned earlier. You bump into someone from a completely different area of the bank and you have an idea of what they're getting up to in their day job, which is fantastic as well. So away from those events that are just now, we're obviously over Zoom. The Institute also offers a lot of face-to-face events when we get back to that normality, and that was what was great in terms of getting me started with getting involved in the Institute. It's actually where I first met Helen, who invited me onto our local district centre, and has then get the ball rolling and me getting more involved with the Institute. And it's just been fantastic to get involved as an active participant in what the Institute does. Millie touched a little bit about what active participants can do within SFE YP. There are similar opportunities within the Chartered Banker Institute as well. The one that I would advocate the most is obviously joining your local district centre, which I'm the vice chair of, which is the Edinburgh, Lothians and Fife district centre. And a little bit of a plug for our LinkedIn group as well. But yeah, it's really good. We're basically a committee that gets together that's filled with members from different organisations, and they're all members of the Institute. And it's great just to get together and collaborate with people that work for different organisations, different roles to yours, and then to try and put events on like the one this evening and those that I mentioned earlier on. So it's fantastic. I can't recommend it enough. Away from that, Millie also mentioned that SFE YP have a mentor scheme. The Chartered Banking Institute have also got something similar, which is just great to see that they do that and try and make sure that they give opportunities to younger professionals to try and have someone to mentor them as they progress within their career. Can't recommend that enough. It's fantastic to have actually a formal relationship with someone more senior to try and help your career go further forward. I know that I've benefited from that in the past, so it's great that both organisations have that. And as well as those more formal things, there's some great stuff that the Institute gets involved in regarding collaboration with other organisations, such as the event this evening, which has obviously been run together between the Chartered Banking Institute and SFE YP. We've also run some events in collaboration with Women in Banking and Finance recently, and also CISI, the Chartered Institute of Securities and Investments. That's been fantastic just to kind of get a broader range of subjects for events out to our members. And again, being a member of the Chartered Banking Institute can get you access to that so that you can then get touch base with what's going on in other organisations that are similar. The Institute, away from the kind of events and the learning side of things, has a couple of other kind of cool things that go alongside it, if I can use the word cool. Which they've got some awards for the best marks in their various qualifications. They've got essay competitions. They do blog posts similar to what Millie mentioned that SFE YP do. And it's a lot of really interesting topics, including we've had a recent series that's been done by the CEO of the Institute, Simon Thompson, who's got a real passion for green and sustainable finance. Some of his blogs about that has just been truly brilliant, and he's a really expert in the area, so it's great. And the last thing I just want to mention the Institute does that I'm a particularly big advocate of is the Young Banker of the Year competition. So Millie and I, as we mentioned at the start, are both previous applicants of that, and I can't recommend it enough. I was a semi-finalist in 2021 Young Banker of the Year competition, and the experience was fantastic. It really pushed me out of my comfort zone. It gave me a great opportunity to grow through developing an idea and then presenting it to a really esteemed panel of senior people. And also my profile was raised massively internally through that. You know, my executive sponsor was great in giving me the backing. And then there was just multiple colleagues who just became aware of my application and give you a lot of encouragement as you're going through that process. So Millie, on the subject of Young Banker of the Year, it's probably a good time to hand back to you. Actually, do you mind give us a little bit of insight into your experience in the competition?
Absolutely, yeah. So I was a semi-finalist in 2018, which feels like a very, very long time ago now, particularly as the pandemic seems to have lasted about 5 years. Or that's how it feels anyway. So echo what you've said though, Rory. My biggest takeaway from that, I think, was proving to myself that I could do something that terrified me. I remember saying out loud, I think I want to apply for this, and then thinking, no, you couldn't possibly. And that's when I knew that I absolutely needed to do it, because I was telling myself I couldn't, and I never looked back. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it was actually through that competition that I got involved with SFE YP, because Graham Jones was a judge that year, and he was part of SFE at the time. So that's how I kind of got introduced to SFE. So it really does go to show that putting yourself forward and putting yourself out there for these types of things can lead on to the next opportunity for you. I think my top tip, if you're going to take anything away and you're interested in applying for the Young Banker of the Year, is if you think you want to go for it, or for any opportunity, and you're telling yourself you can't, just do it. You'll surprise yourself you'll get something awesome out of it, even if it is just that you have challenged yourself and proved to yourself that you've done something that you didn't think that you could do. And also, I guess, don't be afraid to ask for support from your colleagues or your mentors or your peers, because everyone wants you to succeed. So use the network around you as well.
Yeah, I would echo that last point. I think that was one of the nervous moments for me, and that Millie, as I started to progress in the competition last year, about getting backing from an exec sponsor. And it was someone that I actually worked really closely with in my day job, but actually just thought, they've not got the time to help me out with this. But actually, as soon as you broached the subject, they couldn't have been more happy to help out and gave so much support, which was fantastic. Both to get that backing from them to kind of give you that personal encouragement, but again, going back to that networking that you get out of that and the fact that you can just raise your profile through it. One last thing, actually, before I move on, is I just wanted to ask you, Millie, this, and we didn't prep on this subject, but your semi-final was obviously in person, and mine was over Zoom. So mine was nervous enough having to do it to a panel over Zoom. I can imagine it must have been quite different for you having to do it in person. And I was lucky enough to be there at the National Museum for Scotland in Edinburgh. But yeah, how was that?
Yeah, it was terrifying. And one of the things, and I'm sure people that are dialing into this tonight, some of you might relate, one of the things that I get anxious about is public speaking. And I personally, for me, find it safer on a Zoom call than in person. Other people have it the other way around. So yes, it was very nerve-wracking, but again, it just added to that. I've just proved to myself that I could do something that I found scary, and I still now find public speaking not the most enjoyable, but being part of SFE YP as an example has given me the opportunity to practice that and to kind of put that fear or anxiety to bed a little bit, because I'm constantly getting the opportunity to speak in front of a crowd of people, and it turns out that people actually want you to do well, and they're not sat there waiting for you to fail, and you know, it's not actually as scary as it felt. So for me, I was really grateful that although it was scary at the time, that I got to have that opportunity and that I've been able to practice it since and kind of tackle that fear, if you will. But yeah, I guess from your perspective, slightly different experience, but just as nerve-wracking, and more of the unknown, because you attended a lot of the face-to-face events, so it must have been quite.
So there's part of me that was that has gutted I missed out on the evening that when I was at the semi-final for you. But yeah, there is part that thinks, you know, it was slightly less nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I was just sitting at home twiddling my thumbs waiting to dial onto a call to present. So there wasn't quite the kind of the build up to it that maybe would have been a positive or a negative. I'll never know, obviously, but yeah, it was certainly a fantastic experience. I know we'll both advocate it enough, but yeah, I can't recommend it enough to any young professionals who are on the call this evening. It's actually worthwhile noticing as well that 2022 Young Banker of the Year competition closes on Friday the 18th of March. So if you're interested in applying or want to find out more, please go to the Chartered Banking Institute website and have a look on there. It's on the homepage, and you can read what this year's question is. It's again to do with the UN's Principles of Sustainable Banking, and there's a lot of information on there regarding how you can apply.
Great shout, Rory. I really look forward to seeing the finalist presentations this year. It's always fantastic to watch, and I'm always blown away by the ideas that people come up with and new ways that we can make a difference. So yeah, looking forward to that. Rory, I've been really enjoying this conversation. I've got a lot out of even just listening to yourself in terms of the things that you've got out of it, and ideas coming to mind and things that I want to sign up for that the Chartered Banker have got coming up. Hopefully our attendees feel the same. Before we open up for questions, have you got any final kind of thoughts or tips for anyone considering professional memberships or kind of signing up to either SFE YP or CBI?
Yeah, so I've just said very quickly, as I'd echo what you've said there, Millie. It's been great hearing you talking through your experience as well, and hopefully our attendees this evening, I've got an awful lot out of that. A final top tip is just to say, and we kind of touched on earlier on as well, but we spoke an awful lot about the active participation in both organisations that Millie and I have done. You don't actually have to be an active participant to get an awful lot of the membership. The membership is there, and you get access to all the resources that we've spoken through earlier on. And also as well, if you did want to take it further, but actually you don't have the capacity separate to your day job, you don't have to have that formal role in order to get involved. Millie mentioned it earlier. If you have a great idea regarding an event that you'd like to see, you think that maybe members of either organisation would get an awful lot out of that, there's maybe a gap in what the learnings that are out there at the time being, feel free to reach out either to the organisations direct, to someone local that you know is involved, to Millie or I, if you're a local SFE YP firm rep or someone that you know is involved in the institute, and they'll definitely be happy to have that conversation with you. And that's a great way to also open the door to start getting a little bit more involved by giving you a little bit of a taster. So yeah, can't recommend it enough. Fab. So we've managed to get through that in good time to leave an awful lot of time for questions, which is fantastic. So I'll just have a quick look and see what we've started to get coming through, Millie, if you bear with me a second. And I would say to all attendees, feel free to start asking questions and we'll just go through them one by one. So I've got one here, Millie, I think we both can answer actually, which is, aside from professional memberships, what career advice would you give to younger professionals at the start of their career?
It's a great question. I've probably got 3 top tips that I kind of wish that I had known at the start. There's millions of top tips, but I'll try and narrow it down to 3. I think the first one is to not be afraid to ask for help. People are nice, they want to help you. And remember that if you're looking for someone to support you and you're thinking about mentorship, it doesn't always have to be a lifelong relationship. It's not a marriage. I think too many people put pressure on, I couldn't possibly ask that person to mentor me because I've not got something to talk about kind of every week for the next however many years. But actually, you can ask someone for a one-off mentoring session and you can get a lot out of a one-off session. You can get lots of value out of it. And actually that person will be really flattered as well that you've asked. The second thing for me is probably touching back upon my kind of speaking publicly and being a bit anxious about it, just that everyone gets that, imposter syndrome or anxiety or feeling that you can't do something. And there are some really good tips to kind of control those feelings, watching your TED Talks, going on development courses, things like that. But one of the things that I was lucky enough to learn on the Ivy House development program was to always ask yourself 2 questions, which are, is what I'm thinking 100% true? And is it 100% helpful? And if you can't answer yes to both of them, then the thought that you're having or the doubt that's creeping in, you just shouldn't give it any energy because it's not helpful and it's not true. So ignore it. And then number 3 is something that an old manager taught me, which is to have a self-esteem bucket. So when you get positive feedback, pop it in a folder on your desktop. Preferably title the folder something like "I am awesome." And if you're ever having a day where you've got, you're feeling a bit low or something bad's happening in work or you're doubting yourself, open up your self-esteem bucket and have a look through the feedback, because that's probably 90% of how good you are at performing. So it's a good reminder, and it's also a really helpful tool for when you get to your end of year conversations and you need to reflect back on some of the things that you've done well. What about yourself, Rory? What your top career tips?
Firstly, you'd mentioned that last one to me before about the self-esteem bucket, but at no point did you mention you'd titled it "I am awesome." So I love that. But
I like the idea that someone would.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, some tips from myself in terms of what you can do. And Millie and I have obviously been advocating SFE YP and the Chartered Banker Institute this evening and the roles that we do separate to our day job. One thing that I can't stress enough is that we've got really supportive line managers that allow us to do that and get involved in things on top of our day job, and we obviously give up our own personal time to do that as well. What I can't stress enough is to prioritise your day job. I think back to roles I was in the past, there was a lot of people who were quite eager to move on to the next thing, who maybe weren't top performers in their local team. Now, you don't have to be a top performer to move on to something new or to take a sidestep, but make sure you're prioritising, you get all you can out of your day job, and try and pay attention to the senior colleagues that you see within those areas so that you can learn an awful lot while you're there. And that's not just learning an awful lot of the positives you get out of jobs, and everyone will talk about your maybe your star examples you give in interviews. You need to learn from the negatives as well. Remember someone telling me a while ago that when they spoke to former managers they had, it said that, you know what, the time I've had with you is going to shape how I'm going to manage someone in the future. But they actually meant it from both a positive and a negative perspective, because actually, you know what, I'm going to steal with pride the things that you've done well. There's maybe some things that I don't agree with, but you know what, that's going to also shape how I manage in the future. So it's really good to make sure you learn from both the positives and the negatives in your career, especially the early part of your career. I still look back to my first role with NatWest in the call centre and think, geez, what was I thinking back then? But you learn from these things and you grow. And that's what's really good at working in an industry like the finance industry, with the wealth of roles that are across industry. You have that opportunity to grow in diverse roles. And the last thing I would say as well is, and it kind of contradicts my earlier point, reprioritising the day job, is don't be afraid to move on to a different job. You know, if you're not learning an awful lot out of your job, and maybe your long-term career goal is to move around a little while, don't be afraid to take a sidestep for a fresh start. I did it a couple of times actually. At one point I took a step down because I needed a fresh start and wanted to try and diversify my skill set. One of the best things I ever did. So actually having the confidence to do that and try something new and take that side step and then can then help you as you then get ready to move further forward. It doesn't need to be a promotion type thing as you're looking to drive your career. I know that particularly younger people in the industry can be a little bit impatient in that, and I speak through experience because I was definitely very impatient at the start of my career and wanting to move further forward. But with the benefit of hindsight, I can't recommend enough taking your time and leveraging opportunities to go to a role maybe at the same level so you can advance your skill set and then move further forward. So quite a long-winded answer, but hopefully some of our attendees have got a lot out of that. I'm just going to check and see what other questions we've had coming through. So one here from Gregor Finlay, who's actually also on our Edinburgh Lothians and Fife District Centre. So Millie touched on the parliamentary event earlier in the discussion. That sounds really interesting. Could you elaborate, please? Sorry to throw that one to you, Millie.
Absolutely. No, that's great to hear that. It sounds interesting. It is a really fantastic event. It's one of our kind of flagship annual events that we hold every year with SFE YP. This year we got to do it in real life. Our members told us, we did a poll, do you want to do it virtually? Would you like to do it face to face if we can within kind of COVID restrictions? And our members said, please, can we get back to face to face? So it was quite exciting that we were able to do that this year in a physical setting. The theme this year was highlighting the central role that young people can play in driving a fair, green and inclusive recovery. And we also had a focus on our SFE YP strategic themes of skills and inclusion and mental health, as well as the COVID recovery. So we had every year it gives us an opportunity to speak to and hear from industry leaders. So we had Sandy Begbie, SFE's chief exec this year. We also had Kevin Havelock, regional director at RBS this year. But we also had the parliamentary sponsor. So we had the Scottish Labour finance spokesperson, Daniel Johnson, who was a really brilliant speaker. He spoke around key issues for YPs in the sector. And we also heard from Cabinet Secretary for Education and Skills, Shelley-Ann Somerville, which obviously there's a clear link there to our strategic theme around skills and inclusion. So it was really great to get that opportunity to get young professionals' voices heard and ask questions and give our members an opportunity to speak to these leaders that potentially otherwise you wouldn't have an opportunity to get in a room with. So yeah, it's a really exciting opportunity. It's always well attended, and we do the same event every December, but with different speakers and different themes. So look out for it later in the year, I suppose, if you are interested in coming along this year.
Fab, thanks, Millie. And I had to cancel attending this year's event last minute because I wasn't well, so I will most definitely be there in December. So hopefully to see a few of you attendees at this year's event. I'll just go back to the Q&A and see some other questions. So we've got one from Andrew Nielsen, says, congratulations both on reaching the semi-final of the Young Banker of the Year competition. Can you share some tips on what makes a great entry?
Ooh, that's a good
do you want me to go first on that, Millie, or do you want to go first?
Far more recent than me, so you can go back.
Thanks. So I think we probably could talk about this one all day, but I'll try and keep it quite brief because we have had a few questions in. But I think for me and the benefit of hindsight, what made my entry hopefully stand out, which got me quite far in the competition, was the fact that I tried to think a little bit outside the box. There's an awful lot of ideas that came to me when I looked at the problem statement that was given to us regarding the UN's principles of sustainable banking. But it was good to try and actually relate my day job to that. So I think that was one of the things that I would say that I couldn't recommend enough. I know that, Millie, you were similar. There was a kind of link to your day job as well. And there has been applicants in the past who have came in with ideas completely different to their day job. And obviously, if that's the route they go down, they've still been really successful in the competition. But for me, that was something that was really strong. You know, I really believed what I was presenting, both in the last 16 phase and in the semi-final phase, because I actually lived and breathed it day to day, and it was really good, and it actually kind of managed to kind of spark that passion within me, because actually I was talking about this to my colleagues at work, and then I was able to go to these events and actually say, you know what, this is what I think we should do. And as much as I didn't get beyond the semi-final stage, I'm still really proud of managing to get that far and still got some great feedback regarding the content I said. So yeah, that would be my advice for it. Anything you'd like to add, Millie?
I think you've covered most of it there, Rory. Some great advice. I think just to echo what you've said, I think just bring your passion along. As long as it's something that you're passionate about and you're doing it because you really think that your idea will make a difference, and you've done your research because you care about it, then you can't go wrong, because your passion will drive the research, the buy-in that you get from people and other, the people that are watching you, and the judges are going to be brought into it because they'll see how passionate you are about it. So if you are going to go for it, make sure it's about something that you really do care about, I would say.
Thanks, Millie. I'm just looking here, we've got a question from an anonymous attendee who said, I don't enjoy public speaking either, but thank you for the advice on how to tackle that. May I ask what advice you would give to someone who's unsure of what career path to take?
Do you want me to go? Do you want to go?
Yeah, I've probably got something to add as well. I can go first if you want.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's the thing that I would say, and it's been evident in my own career progression, is concentrate on your own skills and your transferable skills. I think it's massively overlooked in the industry, and I work an awful lot on recruitment data about how important transferable skills can be. If someone doesn't necessarily have the experience for a role, it doesn't mean they're not the right fit, because actually they may have done a completely different role, but skills X, Y, and Z regarding communication, stakeholder engagement, or whatever it may be, are actually really applicable to this role. So what I would say is make sure that you work on those transferable skills and try and look for a career path that allows you to leverage that to maximise your potential within the workplace.
I completely agree, Rory. I actually think it's a really exciting place to be if you don't have an idea of your career path. And most people that you hear from will tell you that they didn't have a set career path. My degree is in the arts, and I have a theatre in writing, and I work in a bank. So to give you an idea of how unclear I was about my career path, hopefully that helps. But again, I would take it back to passion. What excites you? Potentially in a few roles' time, you might have a clearer vision of what you do and don't like, and it'll help you create that kind of future plan for your career. But right now it's about, what are you passionate about? What excites you? Because if you're passionate and you're excited about your work, you'll do a great job, and that will lead to progression. And again, I mentioned the Ivy House development course earlier. I am not on commission, but it was a really brilliant course. And they did a session on values, and that has really helped me whenever I've applied for a job or been thinking about my next step in my career. Because if you think about what your values are and you can find a job that allows you to live your values day to day, again, you're going to do a good job because you're going to be enjoying what you're doing. So don't stress about where you're going to be in 5 years' time, because the next opportunity might lead you off that career path anyway. And just try and do the thing that you enjoy and that you're passionate about.
Yeah, thanks, Millie. Can't agree more with that. Yeah. So let's have a look and see who else we've got. So we've got a question here from Louis. So thank you both for your time. How do you see increased digitization and AI changing the nature of banking, and what opportunities do you think this will bring to young finance professionals?
Happy to go first,
Yeah,
Rory.
you can go first, and I'll jump in after.
I am very excited about digitization and AI. My home role, as I said earlier, was in Digitech, and my current role is youth banking, so helping young people with financial capability and confidence. And the marketplace is changing, so it's so exciting that we have to keep up with that as an industry. Obviously, as long as we keep vulnerable customers kind of supported as well. I think young professionals are super equipped in this space to explore new skills. And to Rory's point earlier about not being afraid to try new things, young professionals are constantly trying new social media channels, new apps. So why would we not be doing that with tools and technologies that help us with work and help us to help customers? I think it's a really exciting space to be in. Fail fast, enjoy what you're doing, run with it. There's always something new to learn and something new to make our customers' lives better. So yeah, over to you, Rob.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And I've not been as close to the digitization and AI in my day job as you have been, but because of the business management role I do, and I see the different skills coming through the pipeline of what roles that we're starting to look at doing, and I particularly did a lot of time managing the recruitment process and end-to-end tracking for our main technology areas within NatWest Group, and just it's fantastic to see the opportunities there. So I've answered that second part of Louis' question first. The opportunities about skill sets for new skills are amazing. That the industry is just growing massively within the tech space. And it's great to see an awful lot of organisations as well looking to do upskilling programs so they can actually start to look at staff members and try and get them new opportunities to learn skills. We had a recent initiative in NatWest Group where there was people that had been put at risk of redundancy because of just changing banking strategies. And they went into a programme to then learn to be software engineers, completely abstract their day job, but it was fantastic. And really pleased to see the organisations are doing that. And that's not just my own organisation in NatWest, that's happening across the board. And in terms of what the impact of AI can have, I just think it's fantastic to look at what the potential could be further down the line. I had a conversation with a former colleague recently that was really interesting just about the benefits of AI and machine learning. And it was really good to kind of debunk some of it for me as well, because I'm a bit techie, but I didn't really know exactly how it could work in practice. And when people talk about AI and machine learning, you think about this big kind of grandiose technological language that is really probably quite abstract from your day job. But they were talking about real-time applications of this technology. And what they were doing is there was things where something really simple to implement in a new system to help prioritise telephony calls that were coming into the bank, so that actually you could look at high-risk customers, or actually by looking at their bank account and saying, there's a missed payment, giving them a various ranking and effectively scoring them. And not all customers will agree with that because they want to be a first come, first serve, obviously, but it was really interesting the fact that you could actually then start to model what customers you want to speak to. And there's a whole host of other real-time applications of this technology that I'm really excited to see manifest over the next few years. And one last thing, because I've spoken quite a lot on this, but I'll move on to another question, is I read a fantastic article last week about the impact of low code and no code on the software development of the future, rather than really comprehensive coding as maybe we would think of it historically. And I just think it's really exciting the fact that there's going to be new technologies to even advance how that works. So yeah, if anyone doesn't know anything about that subject, feel free to give it a Google. But low code and no code is really exciting in terms of how it can advance and speed up the software development process. I'll stop talking on that answer because, as you can tell, I can talk all day on that subject. So we've got a really good question here from Mia. So how would you prevent becoming overwhelmed with a struggling day job and these extra memberships while still having a work-life balance? So this is something we've discussed quite a bit. Millie, do you want to go first on this one?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I feel like I've said the word passion about 700 times in the last 10 minutes, but I do think that a big thing about kind of balancing these types of activities with your day job and life is that you need to get involved with things because you're passionate about them, not because you think it's the right thing to do or how it might look to other people. I think when you're passionate, you just kind of magic time up out of thin air. And I am in a position where I love my day job and I love my role at SFE YP and the opportunities that we have. So I don't feel like I'm balancing things. I feel like I'm just putting energy into things that align to my values. Having said that, I do think it's important to ask for help. It's important to know your limits and to know that burnout and Zoom fatigue are real, and you do have to be realistic about your capacity. It's okay to say no. You don't have to say yes to every opportunity, and it's never going to be seen as a bad thing if you know your capacity and you're sticking true to your values. I think you just have to be really true to yourself in terms of, well, what is my priority? What is the thing that I want to commit to and deliver this year? And it might mean that something else gets put on a back burner, but that's okay. For me, I would rather kind of do one thing really well than do 10 things kind of not so well. So yes, put your passion first, and time will appear out of nowhere, but also be nice to yourself as well. And it is very important to have breaks and have a life and have evenings. So if you're sat there not having those things, then it's time to ask someone for help.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything that you've just mentioned there, Millie, and the ability to say no and having the confidence to do that is really important in terms of balancing any external role you have separate to your day job. I mentioned it earlier on talking about career progression. Your day job is a priority at the end of the day, and this year is no different. And what's quite good about it is most of the people that you'll come into contact with regarding the external roles, similar to what Millie and I do, is they'll be in the same situation. So if you came back and said, you know what, I don't have the capacity this week to start looking at this because I've got BAU, business as usual priorities that I need to look at from a day job, and everyone's really understanding because they obviously know that they're in the same boat as you. So yeah, and one last thing I would say is having really supportive line management is really key. I've been fortunate enough for the last couple of years to have a couple of really supportive line managers that allowed me to kind of bring that passion, to use Millie's word, to life and get involved in things, because they were also confident that I was able to still continue on with my day job and deliver to a high level. But having that support and then allowing you to drive with those passion projects is really vital to being successful in that external role, still having success in the day job. And then really importantly, as Mia mentioned in the question, as Millie mentioned there, still being able to have that work-life balance and enjoy socialising at the weekends and chilling out in front of Netflix and the weeknights. So yeah, whatever it is you get up to. So yeah, great question, Mia. So Amy's asked a really good question that I think we kind of touched on a little bit earlier on, actually. But if you can go back a couple of years, what would be the one piece of career advice you would give to yourself now?
That is a very good question.
Yeah. I'll probably get mine. I'll go first then, potentially, because I actually mentioned this earlier on. Earlier in my career, I was really impatient. I started in a junior role within NatWest, and I was on progressing straight away. And actually, I struggled a little bit at first, and with performance in my role. I worked in a call centre, customer-facing role, and it was difficult to get us to perform in that sort of environment. It was different than I'd done before. But actually, after taking an eye off the door and what I was moving on to next and concentrating on the day job, it then helped me perform well and then helped me move on. I must say I didn't learn my lesson, because I actually tried to kind of do the same thing again in my next role, but then finally I have learned my lesson since then, and has been able to improve going further forward. But yeah, you need to be patient with career progression. It won't happen overnight. That's
a really good tip. No, that's fantastic, Rory. I think mine would be to own who you are, be authentic. When I started out in the financial services, I would be embarrassed that my degree was in the arts and that I had a master's in writing, and now I was working at a bank and people going, well, why are you here? Like, what are you doing? But actually now it's something I'm really proud about, because it makes me who I am, and it's part of my background and it's part of my interests. And actually there are things that I learned throughout my degree and my university experiences that help me with my career and my day-to-day. And I just think, don't be embarrassed about the things that make you you, because they're probably the things that make you quite special, and probably other people look up to you for those reasons. So yeah, I think if I could go back, I would tell myself to stop kind of being embarrassed about the facts, the truth.
Yeah, that comes into the transferable skills point I mentioned earlier on as well. You know, with your degree, you're educated to a high standard, and you can pivot into multiple roles with that. So yeah, and I think that's a frequent occurrence. You find people that have studied multiple different things at college or university, or even have multiple different interests, but they somehow have managed to end up in this great industry of ours, working in finance. And it's brilliant having people from such diverse backgrounds working together in a really diverse industry as well. So yeah,
definitely. One of the best things to ask people as well is what their hobbies are, because you'll find out some amazing things and learn some incredible things about random hobbies and interests that people have. It's great.
Yeah, can't recommend that enough. So we have another question here from an anonymous attendee. Thank you, Millie and Rory. It's been great to hear your experiences. What has surprised you most about getting involved, and what did you learn about yourself by getting involved?
That's a great question.
Yeah, it's a tough question as well, I must say. I think for me, what I've managed to learn about myself is how motivated I am to work with other individuals. I'm a people person, and I enjoyed working with my team on a day-to-day basis. And cards on the table, being totally honest, when I started trying to kind of make movements and increase my external network, the goal was for long-term career progression, you know, trying to learn more about the wider industry. but actually along the way, the network of friends that I've made is fantastic. And actually, when we have our monthly committee meeting catch-ups for the Chartered Banker Institute, or when we have our SFE YP catch-ups with the fellow firm reps, it's great just sitting and talking to people. I love that. I found it just motivates me so much, and I've always had great social networks, but actually the social networks that I've got involved in through work is just continued the cycle. So, you get involved in things like away from the day job to try and advance your career, but I'm hooked now. SFE YP aren't getting rid of me anytime soon, or they will be when I'm no longer a young professional, mind you. And the Chartered Banker Institute, there's no age limit on that. So yeah, they're not getting rid of me anytime either. So it's just great kind of being able to work with other people, and I've learned an awful lot about just how much I am motivated to work alongside some other passionate individuals.
And I can attest to that, having worked alongside you, Rory. You're definitely a people person, and it's definitely a skill as well as a passion of yours. I think for me, a couple of things that I've learned about myself is that I'm probably more productive when life is a little bit chaotic, which probably isn't something that I should share or advocate to anyone else. But I think, I've already said passion 1,000 times, but when I'm feeling like really engaged and fired up, it's when I'm kind of spinning a lot of plates, and I really enjoy that. The organisations have helped me to find what I'm passionate about, the areas that I want to make a difference in, and things that I want to learn more about. So obviously climate and sustainability is a huge focus of the sector at the minute, but because of that focus on the sector, it drove me to then do a kind of qualification just to understand more about the topic itself, which without these organisations kind of sharing all the information, I might have not known that I was passionate about that and that I wanted to learn more about that. I think it was the other part of the question about what surprised us about the institutions or the organisations.
Yeah, I think it was just about what surprises about getting involved, if there's anything.
Yeah, I think for me, it's probably the scope of the opportunities, and particularly with a young professionals network, I probably didn't realise, we would be doing events with the Governor of the Bank of England, or, the parliamentary events that we do, the senior leaders, the amount of yeses that you get when you ask, do you know what, we want to help people in the industry learn about X, can you help us? It's always a yes, it's always a, when do you want me? And I just think that's a really inspiring place to be.
Yeah, I would totally agree on that. It's fantastic just to see people that are willing to give up their time to come and speak and advocate what they do and pass on knowledge and then answer questions about their day job. Yeah, it's certainly been fantastic. And we're nearing to the end, and I see that Helen has also came off of put her camera back on. I don't know, we don't have any other questions. We just had one come in there. It was to advocate, just talking about what the Institute offers globally. So there are some lucrative offers in Singapore and in Pakistan as well. So I did mention at the start the Institute as a global organisation. So thanks, Mohammed, for flagging that. So yeah, if we do have anyone from a global audience on tonight, feel free to go onto the Institute's website to learn a little bit more about that. I know this has been a little bit Scotland focused based on the local district centre and also Scottish Financial Enterprise. But it's great that the Institute is a global organisation and offers that as well. So thanks for flagging that one for us. We're nearing the end now, and I think that's us through the questions. So before we hand back to Helen, just wanted to say, Millie, thanks so much for your time this evening. It's been a really inspiring conversation with you. I know that you and I catch up an awful lot anyway, but it's really been great chatting through this sort of thing, and I hope that our attendees this evening have got an awful lot out of it.
Ditto, Rory. Thank you so much. It's been really great to hear from you and your experiences as well. So thank you so much for having us both here, and yeah, been a really great opportunity.
Thanks. Back to you, Helen.
Hi, well, I've smiled throughout that whole session, and I'm inspired and motivated even at my age. So thank you very much for your really interesting and enthusiastic chat, and your passion, to use Millie's word. It just oozes on what you feel about financial services and the memberships that you have. So I'm sure both of you will go very far in your careers, and hopefully that's inspired a lot of other people out there tonight. And I'm sure you can have a self-esteem bucket at any age, and I might actually start one. Don't know what I'll call it, and I don't know if I'll share. So this is the first time we've really had an event of this kind, a fireside chat. So it would be good if our local district members and indeed the audience took time to share their feedback on the survey that Heather usually sends out after the event, because your feedback is really important to us. Our next event is our AGM in a couple of weeks, as Rory touched on. And if there is anyone that's interested in finding out a bit more what we do at a local level, then please get in touch with us. We do have opportunities to just come along and join some of our committee meetings just to find out a bit more about it. You can become an associate member to begin with, just to get a flavour. And I started off just observing before I became a member. And I guess I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and Heather from the Institute, as ever, for all her technical support and helping us to promote the event as well. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.